This Matters. The Finance Minister and Special Minister of State, Mathias Cormann, is with me. Thank you for your time this afternoon.
Good to be here.
Can I just pick up on this issue, because there are a couple of questions that related to you at the end of question time there in the lower house. In your role as Special Minister of State, Mark Dreyfus was asking, will you direct the AEC, the Australian Electoral Commission, to report on whether any organisations that receive donations from the Free Enterprise Foundation complied with Commonwealth electoral laws?
The Electoral Commission is a statutory agency which appropriately acts independently from the political level of government, and the Electoral Commission will do what it needs to do in its judgment, consistent with the Commonwealth Electoral Act. So,
but his point was you have the power as Minister to ask them to do this.
Well, look, I was obviously not in question time in the House of Representatives. I was in question time.
But you do have this power. Will you use it?
Well, I'll have a look at what question was put, but let me just say that the Electoral Commission appropriately should be acting independently. There shouldn't be political interference in the activities of the Electoral Commission. But I'll have a look at what Mark Dreyfus has said in the House of Representatives today, which I obviously haven't seen or heard.
Okay, but you are open to considering a special request of the Electoral Commission?
Well, I don't know, because I will just look at what's been said and I'll make a judgment on that basis.
But regardless of Labor, you're the Minister. Well, you have the power to ask the AEC to do this.
Well, I will have a look at
You're
what's
open
been
to
said.
doing that?
Well, I will have a look at what's been said, but my general point is that the Electoral Commission is an independent statutory agency which ought to act independently.
As in, shouldn't be directed by the Minister?
Well, there should not be political interference from government. But I've come straight here at your request from the Senate. I'm obviously not aware of what was said.
But this issue, well, if you want, Labor doesn't make decisions for you. This has been around a while.
Well, but that is the first time that this proposition has been put to me.
All right. Well, the other issue raised by Mark Dreyfus was the New South Wales Electoral Commission clearly believes the New South Wales Liberal Party breached electoral laws. Does the federal Liberal Party therefore deserve electoral funding if that's the case?
Well, firstly, I'm not responsible for the New South Wales Electoral Commission. Secondly, as the Prime Minister has said, as all of us have said, obviously the Liberal Party organisation must comply with all relevant laws, and that is our expectation.
All right. Let's get to the issues before the Senate then. The ABCC. The CFMEU is running an ad campaign, you might have seen today, comparing an ice dealer to a building worker and saying an ice dealer gets better legal protection than a building worker would. Is it the case that a witness before the ABCC would have to answer questions or produce documents even if it does incriminate them?
The powers for the ABCC that the CFMEU is objecting to are the powers that are available to any regulator, including regulators that were set up by the previous Gillard government. I mean, this is just a furphy. It is just part of the dishonest sort of campaign that the union movement has been running against our efforts to re-establish the Australian Building and Construction Commission, because our objective is to bring down the cost of construction, to ensure that as we transition from resource investment driven growth to broader drivers of growth, we are as competitive and as productive as possible. The CFMEU clearly doesn't support that effort. They want costs to remain high. They want Australia to not be as competitive as we can be. That is not our view, and we'll press ahead with...
Okay, their other concern is access to a lawyer. It is true, isn't it, that under the ABCC bill you wouldn't necessarily get the lawyer of your choice?
Well, again, the arrangements under the ABCC bill are the same arrangements as are in place when it comes to ASIC, as are in place in relation to APRA, as are in place in relation to the ACCC, indeed as are in place in relation to the industrial relations related regulators that the Gillard government set up. There's nothing new or novel here. This is an established process, and the way I've never heard the CFMEU pick on the various industrial bodies that were set up by the Gillard government with the exact same powers and the exact same processes and procedures.
Let's turn to the trucking issue. The different union, the TWU, says there have been a lot of crashes lately, 10 lives lost just over the weekend, including 2 girls. You've argued that you don't think higher pay is the answer to safer roads, but what is the answer?
Well, I mean, there's obviously safety on the roads is a very important issue, and there is a regulator that has got specific responsibility for this. And to the extent that there are things that can be done better, of course, we're always interested in doing things better to ensure that road safety is improved. But the truth is, I mean, this road safety tribunal, so-called, with an Orwellian name given to it by the Gillard government, is not about road safety. It is purely and simply an attack by Labor and the unions on small business owner-operators in the trucking industry. If it was genuinely about safety, why is this order and why is this approach that they took when they were last in government, why is it targeted at small business owner-operators? I mean, this is a very blatant and transparent attack by the union movement on small business.
There are conflicting bits of advice and views on this issue, whether pay helps improve safety. There's a PricewaterhouseCoopers report released by the Department of Education that does indicate higher pay rates would reduce truck crashes.
Well, we don't believe that there is a link. We believe that safety, road safety, is important. There are always, obviously, it's always important for us to keep looking at how road safety can be improved in a sensible fashion. But we don't believe that the Road Safety Remuneration Tribunal, this Orwellian named Road Safety Remuneration Tribunal, is the way to go. Its only purpose is to, essentially go after small business truckies. And we stand with small business truckies. We want them to be able to continue to get ahead and of course pursue their livelihoods.
Let me turn to the banks. Do you agree there have been too many troubling incidents in the banking sector?
Well, our banking sector is very well regulated. Don't take my word for it. That is what Bill Shorten used to say not that long ago when he was the financial service.
We've seen a few incidents since then.
I mean, there have been troubling incidents, and there have also been
too many.
And there have also been many inquiries. And indeed, it was the coalition that initiated the financial systems inquiry, something that Labor opposed.
We've seen troubling incidents since then. That's the point the Prime Minister was making. He said there have been too many troubling incidents. And
we do. And the Prime Minister was, of course, right with what he was saying. And we do have ASIC.
So what will you do about it?
Well, we've got ASIC as the corporate regulator with all of the powers of a Royal Commission. But not only that, actually also the powers to investigate and to enforce and to pursue and to prosecute. And
so you don't need to do anything further?
Well, we certainly don't need a Royal Commission, because the Royal Commission actually doesn't help to resolve, in these circumstances, the issues that have been put on the table. I mean, we've had several inquiries. We've had Senate inquiries. We've had, of course, the financial systems inquiry. The government has initiated last year a capability review into ASIC.
I mean, is that enough? ASIC doesn't need to hold any further inquiry?
Well, again, I mean, ASIC has got a job to do under our corporations laws, which it does independently, and it's a statutory agency which does that job according to its judgments. And we believe that ASIC has got the resources and also the powers in order to pursue wrongdoing if and where that occurs.
So they don't need more resources? More power?
Well, obviously that is something that is always under review.
That's what I'm asking. Do they need more resources or power?
And as I've indicated, we initiated a capability review. We did that. That is something that is currently being considered by government, and we will, when we're in a position to make announcements in relation to that, we will make them.
You also took out $120 million from ASIC on top of the efficiency dividend. Was that a mistake?
Well, Labor actually imposed an efficiency dividend on ASIC.
And then after that you took out $120 million.
We always make judgments on what the appropriate levels of resourcing is. That is something that we are reviewing in the lead up to this budget.
Sure. Was that a mistake?
Well, we made the judgment that was required at the time. We are now looking at what the appropriate level of resourcing for ASIC and indeed for any other agency across government is as we put the finishing touches to this budget, and you can expect some announcements to be made in relation to that.
So you might see more money put back in?
Well, the budget will be delivered on the 3rd of May, and I would expect that some announcements in relation to the resourcing for ASIC and other agencies around government will be made in the context of the budget, of course, as they always are.
Let me finally ask, it is a big week in the Senate. You're the government's deputy leader there. Are you expecting any late night sittings or further fireworks like we saw around the Senate voting reforms?
Let's see how the week unfolds. We brought the Senate back because the time for procedural games on the re-establishment of the Australian Building and Construction Commission is well and truly over. This is legislation which was first introduced more than 2 years ago. It's been sent to 3 different Senate inquiries. Labor has been filibustering this for some time. Obviously, we want the Senate to deal with it one way or the other, so that if the legislation is not passed, we can then ask the Australian people to pass judgment at a double dissolution election.
Has there been a serious effort, would you say, to win over the crossbench?
Well, this is legislation which has been before the Parliament for more than 2 years. Obviously, there's been a whole series of procedural games which has delayed dealing with this piece of legislation. We now have made available 3 weeks for the Senate to deal with this. As the Prime Minister said, the time for procedural games is well and truly over. We need to deal with this one way or the other, so that if the Senate doesn't agree to support this bill, which we would like to see passed, then it'll be up to the Australian people to decide.
Mathias Cormann, Finance Minister and Special Minister of State, thanks very much for joining us, and no doubt we'll be hearing from you further throughout the week.